Minister arriving at this venue, the Bharat Mandapam, just outside Exhibition Hall 14, where he will be hosting the 20 most powerful men and women on the planet, the leaders of the G20 grouping of countries. We can see the Prime Minister's limousine just stretch in to the Bharat Mandapam venue. And of course, he will be standing there at the entrance of hall number 14 and welcoming each of the guests personally and asking them to come in and join him. You can see the Prime Minister there. He is, of course, flanked by the other delegates from the Indian team. Of course, he is interacting with them, checking on last-minute preparations and last-minute details that need to be sorted out. So clearly, the Prime Minister there will be now taking his position outside this Exhibition Hall 14 at the Bharat Mandapam, from where he will be greeting all the dignitaries who will be coming. We know that the leaders of the United States, the UK, are already here. The German Chancellor has just arrived. The French President will be arriving later this afternoon. So clearly, all countries are being represented. All 19 countries plus the European Union are being represented. Maybe not all of them at the head of state or head of government level. For example, Russia is being represented by its foreign minister. The Chinese are being represented by Li Qiang, who is the premier, not the president of China. So, but the important thing is that all member states of the G20 and international organizations that are part of the G20, like the EU and other institutions, are all being represented by their leaders. So the Prime Minister's car, as you saw moments ago, just driving in to this Bharat Mandapam, the venue. Like I said, the Prime Minister will be personally and individually greeting each of the leaders. They will then proceed to the main hall. At about 10 o'clock is when the first session that will begin, which is One Earth. The Prime Minister, of course, being the host this year, will be making the opening comments. We're given to understand that's going to be closer to 10:30. And then each of the leaders of these various 20 countries will give their opening statements. That part is open to the media. And after that, the doors will be shut and there will be deliberations on the theme of One Earth. That's where the bulk of the deliberations will be going on. Let me go across to my colleague Anand Narasimhan, who's also joining us from this International Media Center just inside the Bharat Mandapam complex. So Anand, the Prime Minister and his cavalcade just pulling in. How important and how significant is it that he is personally greeting each of the visiting leaders and ushering them in to the main exhibition hall?
Well, that itself shows our commitment to Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and this is all one family. And of course, the civilizational, cultural practice where you treat your Atithi as a Deva or a Devata as nothing short of God. So Atithi Devo Bhava. And that's why the host, that is India, and the Prime Minister, who's a Pradhan Sevak, representing a nation of 1.4 billion people and welcoming the leadership delegation. I'm on the upper deck, so that's Hall 14. Right below that, at the 10th, that's where Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be. In fact, just a stone's throw away from us here, from this height, is where his car, his cavalcade has actually parked itself. You have the SPG and all of that at the ready down below here. But that is Prime Minister Narendra Modi inside, along with Subramaniam Jaishankar. You will also have Minister Piyush Goyal present there. So these are the people who are going to be helming, along with the Chief Coordinator and also Sherpa Amitabh Kant. So Chief Coordinator Harshvardhan Shringla and Sherpa Amitabh Kant. This will be the core who will be leading it, along with Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Some of the important conversations. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman did have in-depth engagements with her counterparts last evening, even as the bilaterals were going on at the PMO, that is 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister Praveen Jugnauth, and after that with Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina of Bangladesh, and thereafter with President Joe Biden. I think the most significant, Chaka, like we said, and we are seeing it all around, is hospitality, comfort, care. This aspect of we care for you, you matter to us, and we will all collectively work together. This ethos is there at every nook and corner of the Bharat Mandapam and the G20 arrangements to facilitate the movement of all the leaders. There is inconvenience to us as hosts, as locals, as residents of Delhi, but we are willing to bear that inconvenience so that you have a pleasurable experience because you are our guests. I think that is the overall sentiment and ethos ethos that we are seeing communicated across the board. And the Prime Minister is leading from the front. He's been in the thick of all the arrangements and, more importantly, standing right there to ensure that each and every dignitary as they start arriving is welcomed. And he's there on time. 9:30 onwards is when the session is supposed to begin, and all the guests should start arriving now. And he's there right on time. And if he's on time, that means everybody else has to be on time within the entire apparatus, Zaka. So that's something which he's been leading from the front for nearly a decade, and we've seen him at close quarters function like this. You can actually wind your clock based on his arrival.
Yeah, certainly he's on time. 9:15 is when we're told the first sets of guests will arrive, and like I said, the Prime Minister is at the south entrance where he will be welcoming each of these guests. Certainly the leaders, either at the head of state or at the head of government level. My colleague Siddhant is also there here at the International Media Centre. Arunima is joining us from a vantage point in Lutyens, Delhi, from where all of these leaders will be leaving from their respective hotels. Pallavi Ghosh is also there here at the International Media Centre. Siddhant, first things first. So coming into today, the important day, day one of this G20 Summit, what can we expect? What is the schedule for today? There are 3 sessions that I'm given to understand. First is the morning session where they will discuss One Earth, and then in the afternoon there is the One Family session, and then in the evening they have the cultural extravaganza and the dinner that's going to be hosted by the Rashtrapati. So walk us through what is expected through the day today.
Ground floor of International Media Center, and behind me you can see journalists are perhaps getting ready for the first session, to cover the first session. So first I would like to explain it for our viewers that how these multilateral events are covered. So look at these screens. So these screens are going to broadcast the arrival of the leaders, the greeting exchange between Prime Minister Modi and other leaders, and at the same time post that when this session will begin. So the first session, Zaka, is going to be the open session. Open session means that Prime Minister's remark will be broadcasted by the state broadcaster. Now the second session is the closed door session. So One Earth session is an open session. One Family session is a closed door session. The other leaders' remark and statements will be broadcasted by late night by their state broadcasters. So that is how the protocol is for G20. Now this is quite different from what has been what was followed in BRICS. So in BRICS, there is an open session in which a state broadcaster of the host country broadcast the remark of all the leaders. So there is it depends on multilateral event to multilateral event. But when it comes to G20, this protocol is followed. Now, Zaka, we were talking about the consensus building. Now, it all depends on Prime Minister's charisma and his might, and perhaps his personal equation with the word leaders. In fact, Anand was also talking about Jake Sullivan's statement where he said that there could be a situation of compromise. So, but having said that, Zaka, the kind of statements coming from the senior officials, the NSL ranking officials from the European countries, talking about Ukraine and what Russia has been mentioning from day one, that West wants this G20 presidency to be Ukrainized. That was the word which was used by Russia. Also, this we were talking about the Sherpa track.
Right.
Now, talking about the finance track, Zaka, you are well aware that there are 2 objections which have been raised by China and Russia. So that is something where consensus needs to be built. So, it's going to be, when we say that India is walking a tightrope, then perhaps next 24 hours are very crucial to decide the fate of India's presidency, because Zaka, going by the standards, the success of any multilateral event is considered when joint declaration comes out. But irrespective of that, Zaka, the kind of development-driven, growth-oriented and human-centric growth-oriented model agenda that India has put forth is remarkable, and perhaps would help in the development of the countries from the global south.
All right, Pallavi and Abhishek are also joining us from the International Media Center here, but I want to go across to Arunima, who's joining us from a vantage point in central Delhi, where from all of these leaders, the visiting leaders, whether it's of the UK, of Germany, of other visiting countries, part of the G20, are all going to be leaving in the next few minutes from their respective hotels. So Arunima, just walk us through what you're seeing around you. What is the security protocol that's been put in place? I believe, they've swooped down on the entire Lutyens zone, as it were, and there is no passage of any other private vehicles for at least the next 45 minutes or so.
Yes, 9 o'clock is when the first set of carcades have begun moving as per the details that have been made available. There are carcades moving in from Gurgaon. There are carcades moving in from the Aerocity. There are also carcades moving in from Saket in South Delhi. So these are further away from Bharat Mandapam. But in central Delhi area, you can see multiple layers of barricades being put up. This is the road that takes you towards India Gate. The hotels around this area, the Claridge's, which hosts France, the Lodhi Hotel, which hosts Oman. The Russian delegation is at the Oberoi, which is also near this area. And the few vehicles and the few riders who are being allowed, their iCards are being checked. These are people mostly who are doctors. At least 3 doctors were allowed. They were working at Ram Manohar Lohia. And there is a support team vehicle right behind us, if PK Das could show you. So doctors and support team vehicles are the only ones who are being allowed. Other than that, you see multiple vehicles being stopped, riders being stopped, their iCards being checked. They're all being frisked as to why they're on this route, and only this particular route, after frisking, after checking of the iCards, is being allowed. Every other route has been sanitized leading up to the India Gate area, leading up to Bharat Mandapam, and this will continue till about 10:30, and then there could be some break, and then again 4 o'clock onwards, when the return, some delegates want to go back and then come back for presidential dinner in the evening. So there has been a proper schedule worked out. Specifically trained drivers have been also told which hospital to go to if any of the delegation members or the heads of the state there's a medical emergency. There are also lanes and by-lanes that have been marked in case there is an exigency, what route the driver should take. And these are specifically trained drivers, about 450 of them who have earlier worked with the SPG or the NSG. So the Delhi police has completed its bandobast, and it is ensuring that towards Bharat Mandapam, where our delegates are going, where our heads of states are going, there is no difficulty that they face there, even if Delhiites are being told to cooperate. There is some restrictive movement for Delhiites there.
Okay, I also want to go across to Pallavi Ghosh and Abhishek Jha. Pallavi, you cover the finance ministry. Even at the first meeting that happened, the first big meeting of the G20, which was the finance ministers' meeting in Bengaluru, a consensus was elusive, and that was followed by the foreign ministers' meeting again, where they couldn't find a common language to come out with a joint communique. When you speak to members in the finance ministry and others in government, how hopeful are they of getting this joint communique? And B, even if that weren't to come to pass, things like digital public infrastructure, the UPI payment architecture, all of these are things that India has given huge emphasis on. A whole bunch of countries have already shared this with India.